Hey everyone, it's Marvin. Thanks so much for listening to Books and Boba. I just wanted to take a quick second to remind you that Books and Boba just launched our Patreon to help support our future endeavors. Rira and I have been running Books and Boba for the last 6.5 years, and we've always talked about wanting to do more, including expanding our content offerings, being able to go to book events and do more coverage. And so to help us get closer to those ambitions, we started a Patreon to help us grow and to better support books by Asian and Asian American authors. We are offering 2 tiers for our Patreon. The first is our regular Boba member coming in at $3 a month, which will give you access to our brand new Books and Boba Discord server so you can engage with your fellow Books and Boba Club members and also Rira and myself in real time. This is where we'll be aiming to move the bulk of our book club discussions. But rest assured, we'll still have a presence on Goodreads as well. And our premium tier is our Honey Boba member tier coming in at $5 a month, where in addition to access to our Discord server, you'll also get access to our monthly Boba Chats, a bonus podcast where Rira and I and some guests will get together each month and have a more casual discussion on stuff that may or may not be book related, as well as answer some listener Q&A. Honey Boba members will also have access to a poll to help decide an official Books and Boba book pick once per quarter. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, support Books and Boba on Patreon by going to patreon.com/booksandboba. As always, Rira and I really appreciate your support. All right, thanks for listening, and I'm on with the show.
You're listening to Whoa! Potluck.
And welcome to Books and Boba, a book club and podcast featuring books by Asian and Asian American authors. My name is Marvin Yue.
And I'm Rira Yu.
And welcome to our February 2023 mid-month check-in, where every month we take a look at the latest Asian American book and publishing news. It is Valentine's Day week. Rira, happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah. What did you do for Valentine's Day, Marvin?
I took care of my ailing wife because she got sick the day before Valentine's Day. It was not COVID. We believe it was caused by... so we visited one of our friends over the weekend, and her baby has the habit of sticking his hand in people's mouths. So I'm pretty sure that's where she got the bug from.
That's rough. And it's your first Valentine's Day as like a married couple,
know.
too.
It was pretty depressing. I had to spend Valentine's Day alone. We hung out over FaceTime, I guess. Because, we were taking COVID precautions, right? We were quarantining just in case it was a COVID. But she's been cleared, and it was just it wasn't mild, but it was just like a stomach bug. Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, those are nasty.
How was your Valentine's Day?
Nothing special. Like, we ordered takeout and we watched Fellowship of the Ring. So
Ooh.
it was a very chill Valentine's Day.
A very chill 3-hour-long movie. Did you watch the director's cut?
No, it was just the feature length. My partner and I, we have like a special relationship with Lord of the Rings because one of the first meetings I've had with Dan was he was working on a short film that was kind of like a parody of Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
And I helped with casting. So, and also like I was obsessed with Lord of the Rings for a really long time to a point where like I memorized the script. So,
oh wow,
that's
a very long script.
For like most of the movie, I was just like repeating the lines. It's become like a comfort movie to me over the years. So it was a very chill Valentine's Day.
So did you watch The Rings of Power then, or are you over your...
Oh yeah, I watched The Rings of Power. And I did not like it.
Didn't? I thought it was all right. No. I thought it was, you can definitely see all the money they spent.
It was better than I thought it was going to be. But the ending really... Like, I feel like it docked maybe 2 stars from my original rating. I was
are you talking about the big twist?
Yeah, the big twist.
Oh, yeah.
And also, like, it was just weird with like, Galadriel's characterization and also like how everything is so compressed in the timeline that I'm like, it seems kind of rushed. But
you don't like Girl Boss Galadriel?
No, I don't. I feel like they could have done a way better job showing like the, I guess, like more violent and edgier side of Galadriel, but as like an elf that's lived for thousands of years, like during the era of the trees, like I don't believe it. So
you heard it, folks. Hardcore Tolkien fan, Rira you.
I don't know. Don't call me a Tolkien fan because I've not read the entire. I've not read the Silmarillion. I've only like maybe skimmed through it and watched a lot of video essays on it. So
did I say
am not an
hardcore
expert.
Peter Jackson fan?
No, because that means that I watch his other films, and after what he did with The Hobbit, I'm like, I'm revoking. I'm
selective
taking this back.
Lord of the Rings. Middle Earth fan, Riri.
But earlier this week, I had the pleasure of meeting the entire squad of the Kim Chingus. All of them had an event at Bel Canto Books in Long Beach, and it was so great because Gracie is all the way from New Zealand. So I was like, when am I ever going to see her again? And then Sarah's from Canada. She's from Vancouver. I've seen Sarah before, but it's also like, you're from Canada. When else am I going to see you in person?
Yeah, shout out to the Kim Chingus. I've never been to Bel Canto Books yet, and I actually didn't come with Iria because they had sold out beforehand. And now I'm learning from you that I probably could have shown up because there were last minute tickets available. But maybe next time. Maybe next time the Kim Chingus are in town, we can finally hang out. But yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. We have had all but two of them on our podcast before. So looking forward to collecting the rest of the Kim Chingus on this podcast.
They're human beings. We shouldn't treat them like Pokemons. But Gracie and Susan are coming out with books this year. So we will be talking to them eventually. Let's
do it. Definitely looking forward to that. All right. So on that note, let's get started with our mid-month episode. As always, we start off with the latest publishing news in the world of Asian American literature. As with before, we have omitted most of the Harper Collins books from this list, although as of this morning, the strike is over. So I guess in the near future, we'll probably do a all Harper Collins book update, a special episode for y'all to go over all the book news that we've missed from that publisher. But we are going off of a list that we put together last night while they were still on strike. So all the Harper Collins and Harper Collins imprints are not going to be listed this round. But stay tuned for that. And we'll probably talk more about the end of the strike later on in our news segment. But to get started, Rita, what is our first book deal?
All right, our first book deal is in a 2-book deal. Dell bought North American rights to Naina Kumar's debut novel, Say You'll Be Mine. Pitched as My Best Friend's Wedding meets Indian matchmaking, the book follows a young woman who enters a fake engagement with the man her parents always wanted for her in an effort to survive being the best man at the wedding of her ex, whom she still has feelings for. Publication is set for 2024, and the second novel is currently untitled.
This sounds like just the kind of rom-com chaos that you want from like a good rom-com, right?
Yeah, it sounds like a bad idea. Also, what are you doing being the best man at your ex's wedding when you still have feelings for them?
Well, sometimes you're still best friends with your ex.
Really?
I'm sure it happens here and there. I've seen it happen multiple times in other rom-coms.
I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen a couple times in real life, but not to the degree of they would be called as like the best man or maid of honor, because it feels weird for the partner, doesn't it? Because it's your wedding and having an ex there, like in the high table of honor. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be
It's
weird.
An awkward situation where I would definitely not recommend putting yourself in. But this sounds fun because I love fake relationship stories because lots of conflict comes with it.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's with a guy that her parents always wanted to set her up with is pretty hilarious to me.
Yeah. Next up, Learner's imprint Carol Rhoda Lab bought world English rights to Pangu's Shadow, a YA novel by Karen Bao, the author of the Dove Chronicles. Arrow and Ver are two of the most promising biology students in the Pangu star system until they become suspects in their teacher's murder. The rivals reluctantly team up to find the real culprit, running up against system-wide inequalities and conspiracies. Publication is set for spring 2024. Ooh, murder mystery in space.
Murder mystery in space with nerds. Love it.
Yeah, and system-wide inequalities and conspiracies gives me noir vibes. So love to see dystopian future murder mystery. It's all the right keywords for my heart.
All right, next up, Rika Simonson acquired Freeman Ying's YA novel in verse, Bridge Across the Sky. Inspired by the poems that Chinese immigrants to the U.S. carved into the walls of the Angel Island detention facility in San Francisco Bay, the 1920s set novel follows teen Su Tai-go's lengthy wait to find out if he, his father, and his grandfather will be allowed into the country, and his awakening to the political realities of his new home. Publication is planned for fall 2024.
Yeah. Angel Island, for people who aren't aware, is the I guess it would be the equivalent of Ellis Island on the West Coast, except much less glamorized in history. Since it was the gateway into the U.S. from the Pacific, it's where all the Asian immigrants came in through in like the late 1800s and early 1900s. And the experience is definitely a lot different than what you hear about during that time when America was supposedly like the haven for all who wants to be free.
Yeah, before they kicked out most Chinese people through the Chinese Exclusion Act and a bunch of other racial acts that they passed. So
yeah,
lovely. But this book sounds great. I love how it is a novel in verse and that we're going to be seeing some poetry. And yeah, I'm excited for the book.
Yeah. All right. Our next book deal. Scholastic acquired world rights to Becoming Boba by Joanna Ho, the author of Eyes That Kiss in the Corners, among others. It is a picture book about the history of boba, cultural shifts through generations, and letting your true colors shine, and explores the common diasporic question, what does it mean to be boba, or Asian enough? Amber Wren will illustrate. The publication is set for fall 2024.
Well, this sounds like a book that fits our podcast.
Yeah. I mean, any book with boba is like an official Books and Boba recommendation. I think it sounds cool. I think it's interesting play on the fact that like for a lot of Asian Americans, I feel like boba is kind of like an identity. You know, it's what we have latched onto as like a representation of Asian American culture, and I think exploring that culture through boba is really smart and really cute.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely track the growth of like Asian American quote unquote coolness by like how many boba shops popped up in your neighborhood. Because back when I went to college in Manhattan, there was only one boba shop. And I went back like a couple of years ago, and now there's like so many boba shops. I was like, wow, there's a Gongcha here. And
yeah,
they actually have like main chains, whereas like the boba shop that I went to was like family run. So
yeah, I mean, it's definitely wild to hear you say that because you went to college after I did, and like boba was already proliferating all across the West Coast when I was in college. So like the spread of boba to the East Coast was definitely a lot slower than like I thought when I was younger.
Yeah, and I lived in Georgia before I went to college, and like we had more boba shops before I moved to Manhattan. And it was like, I was like, it's wild because Manhattan is so, it's so big and busy. And it's like the hot pot of so many different ethnic communities. And it was just kind of sad.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like a multicultural metropolitan hub. And so that's just further proof that New York ain't as hot as it thinks it is.
It's not. Also, like, Asian food is not as good as you think it would be. I mean, probably different now, considering I feel like there are more Asian American chefs that have opened restaurants in like the boroughs, but back when I went, it was like either very expensive or not very good. So
Yeah.
but I'm excited to see this book by Joanna Ho. Joanna Ho, the author of Eyes That Kiss in the Corners, and that book has gotten numerous awards. And I know a lot of kids and parents have praised it because it really celebrated, Asian American identities. And, I feel like we need more books like that because especially like the older generation, we kind of grew up with.
Yeah, I mean, our representation was like Tiki Tiki Temple, which was a very, very racist book, looking back on it.
And for like the non-Asian parents who are, giving this book to kids or reading it out loud at libraries, it's going to teach kids, hey, maybe don't comment on Asian people's eyes and ask them why their eyes are smaller or or just point things out like that.
Yeah, and also boba is cool. You should drink it.
Our next deal is Page Street has acquired Helga by Katherine Yu, the author of Direwood. In this gender-bent Frankenstein retelling, blending comedy and body horror, 18-year-old Helga wakes up swole, feisty, and a big shock to her scientist father. When her father leaves town on business, Helga escapes the lab to explore her volcanic island home in search of rowdy punk clubs, new friends, good food, and on the hunt for a cute boyfriend, even if she has to make one herself. Publication is set for spring 2024.
This sounds fun. It's like a YA Frankenstein riff. When I hear woke up swole and feisty, I'm thinking of, I don't know, are you watching Physical 100, Rira?
No, I'm not.
Oh, I'm just thinking of those bodies right now because, man, a lot of swole bodies in that show.
Like, I for a long time, I was just like, what is this thing that they're... For a long time, I didn't know what Physical 100 was and why so many of like my friends were watching it.
Oh,
and then
it's so good. It's so good.
And then I saw the thumbnail and I was like, oh, I can see why.
I think you and Dad would appreciate it. It's kind of like, it has the trappings of a death game, but the vibes of a bake-off. It's pretty awesome.
Interesting.
But yeah, always love to see like gender-bent riffs on classic stories.
I love how it's about a teenager, just a typical teenager who wants to, go out and have fun.
Yeah.
A fun night on the town, but it just happens that they're kind of like Frankenstein.
All right. Our next book deal, Putnam acquired North American rights to The Fetishist by Katherine Min. The second and final novel by the late author who died in 2019. The story is about a daughter's revenge on the man who she believes drove her mother to her death, though nothing goes as planned. Min's 2006 debut novel, Secondhand World, earned her critical acclaim and was shortlisted for the Penn Bingham Award. Min's daughter, writer, and editor, Kayla Min Andrews, helped edit the novel and intends to help promote it before and after publication, which is set for January 2024.
Revenge stories are very hot these days, thanks to The Glory. I feel like so many people are watching it.
I feel like revenge stories have always been hot, though. Like, you always,
they've always been hot.
Starting from like way back. What was the classic one? Count of Monte Cristo? Isn't that like the original, one of the original revenge stories? I'm sure there are classic like Eastern stories that are also very revenge focused. Yeah,
I feel like it is a universal feeling of I want to get revenge on someone who has wronged me and I've waited all this time. It's depending on your culture, it's either revenge is served hot or cold. And I feel like with a lot of Asians, it tends to be served on the hot side.
Or like hot and cold, right? It's like cold because it's like a grudge you've held for decades, but you're still burning about it.
Yeah, I think it really depends on like which Asian culture you come from. But this sounds really entertaining.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that Catherine's daughter is helping bring her mom's book to life, even after her mom's death.
I'm sure it was also a pretty painful process, but I'm sure a great book came out of her efforts.
Yeah.
All right, next up, Random House Studio bought world rights to the Jade Bracelet by Dinh. Illustrated by Yong Ling Kang, the picture book is about a girl who learns to love the Jade Bracelet given to her as part of a family tradition, even though it's so unlike the glitzy jewelry worn by her friends. Publication is slated for spring 2025.
Jade bracelets are pretty cool, though. And they're expensive. And they're like...
They are
You can't take it off, ever, right? It's because it's stuck on your hand unless you break the bracelet.
I mean, don't they make it big enough for you to slide it off?
From what I know about jade bracelets, they make it big enough for you to slide it in, but like it's very hard to slide out of.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I know that for some of my Chinese friends, they get like jade jewelry from like when they're babies. And that's like part of like the family heirloom.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure this is the moral of the story is jade is just as cool as gold or jewels or whatever, but I've always thought jade jewelry was pretty cool. It's like the equivalent of boba, but for jewelry, because it's very like iconic of like Asian aesthetic, right?
Yeah, and also like her friends wearing glitzy jewelry. I'm sorry, that they're probably shopping at Claire's and their jewelry is all fake. You're getting like legit high quality stone as your jewelry, so you shouldn't be jealous. But it's a picture book, so I'm guessing that the kid is very young.
Yeah, she probably don't know no better. But that jade is probably worth way more than all that glitzy, shiny stuff. So be proud of
you
it.
could probably sell that and pay off a lot of debts.
All right. Next up, Disney Hyperion acquired at auction When the Sky is Deepest Blue by Clare Osongco. This YA debut tells the story of Dee Dee Walters, an insomniac in conflict with her strict Filipino single mom, who won't let her learn how to drive. But when Dee Dee meets the new boy next door, whose home life also keeps him up at night, a series of midnight driving lessons becomes an escape from the pain and secrets they both have inherited. Publication is slated for fall 2024.
I can definitely relate to the midnight driving lessons because like my dad, I mean, this was before I took like official driving lessons, but when my dad was first teaching me, he could only teach me at night. So we would like find an empty parking lot and practice.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, yeah, it would be like really late at night. Sometimes it was like 10 o'clock, not close to midnight because I still went to school. But learning how to drive at night it's kind of creepy. It gives you like horror movie vibes. Don't recommend it, but this sounds more romantic.
Yeah, I think this is more like sweet and boy meets girl type of story. Although if it does take a creepy turn, I'm not against that. But I don't think it's that type of story.
No, it feels like it's like an indie movie love story about two teens who, they have hidden pain and they're able to share that with each other.
Yeah. And the hidden pain is intergenerational conflict, which is the most Asian American of all stories.
Yes. The whole, my mom doesn't understand me and I would like to have freedom. It's something that all of us go through.
Yep.
All right. Next up, Norton Young Readers acquired world rights to picture book Leif's Gift, written by Michael Wang and illustrated by Lenny Wen. The picture book is about a boy's plant collection that takes over his bedroom. When important belongings start to go missing in the overgrowth, Leif must use his botany skills to find a solution. Publication is tentatively slated for winter 2025.
This just sounds like a self-made problem. Like, no one should have that many plants.
I just realized that I probably mispronounced the character's name. It's probably Leif's Gift because it's about plants.
It is.
I get it now. I'm definitely not a plant person. I kill every single plant that I get from people. But I like to blame that on my environment because I live in an apartment where I don't get a lot of direct sunlight.
For a while, when I used to work in an office, I had a cubicle succulent, which I was raising. But I don't know where that went. I think I gave it to a coworker when I left.
did you take care of it? Like, did you actually water your succulent? Because you're supposed to do that, like, I don't know, not monthly, but you're supposed to like dunk it in water instead of like pouring water on top of the soil.
I think I just poured water on it. It's probably dead at this point. Although it was
at this point.
It was, I mean, I'm sure my coworker is taking better care of it. It's probably in a better place than in my cubicle. But yeah, this sounds like a lot of fun and may encourage more kids to raise some plants in their room, which I'm sure parents will love because it definitely won't attract any bugs into the house. I
mean, if it's inside, I don't see why they would attract bugs. Just make sure you close your windows.
Bugs will find a way. All right. Our last deal. Candlewick Press bought world rights to Harshini Vankineni's debut picture book, What Color is the Baby? Illustrated by Neha, Rawat, Battish, the story takes a loaded question steeped in colorism and creates a journey in which one girl finds a new and loving way to welcome a new baby sister. Publication is set for spring 2025.
Ooh, colorism. That is a loaded topic for a picture book.
Yeah, especially in an Asian family. Colorism is something that we've all dealt with because, man, those prejudices run deep.
It really does. I have an Indian friend who has darker skin compared to her older sister, who's very, very light-skinned. And growing up, that was like a social... Growing up, that was like a self-esteem issue that she had because like her family members would be like, oh my God, your sister is so pretty. And then they would say a lot of like backhanded compliments to her that was, you know, not really great to say to a kid in hindsight, but they did it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you can't even say it's like the scars of colonialism because I feel like colorism is much deeper than that because I think even without the presence of like white beauty standards, I feel like people have always held like skin color as like a sign of like
wealth and
beauty, right?
Yeah, because at least in like East Asian culture, it's if you're tan, it must mean that you're a peasant because you're working out in the sun, and if you're pale, you don't have to work outside, so therefore you're from a rich family. That level of prejudice still exists today in East Asian culture. But also, I feel like it's gotten a bit better because now I'm seeing a lot of East Asians getting tan to look healthy, to look like, you know, they, you know, walked out from a gym. So I don't know.
I mean, isn't that just adopting American beauty standards now where like,
yeah, it is. So like... it's not, it's not better, but I feel like the beauty standard for skin color, at least, has broadened just a little bit.
Slightly healthier.
Slightly healthier.
Slightly. I guess, you know, it's progress. Progress is always slow. So in any case, congratulations to Harshini on their debut picture book.
So that is a wrap on our book deals, and we're going to be moving on to book news. And the first piece of news that we have is breaking. It literally happened a couple of seconds before we started recording this podcast. Harper Collins Union has ended their strike after reaching a tentative agreement with their publisher on February 9th. And the union will be going back to work on the 21st of February.
Yeah, congrats to everyone who held the line these last few months. Happy for them, even though I still feel like they're being paid way too little for a New York City job. It's at least their salaries are now on par with the industry, which I guess it's a win, right?
It's a win, but also I feel like publishing should pay their employees way more. $50,000 is not enough, barely enough to get by in like a cheaper neighborhood in like the boroughs of New York. But I'm really glad that they did reach an agreement. It's been a very long time because they've been on strike since November. And the union employees are going to be getting a one-time lump sum bonus of $1,500. And it seems like the contract is going to be through December 31st, 2025. So at least they have that contract for another 2 years, and I hope that people get raises afterward. I'm cynical. I don't expect there to be raises, but this is a good start.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what they negotiate in terms of their diversity initiatives as well. Hopefully this will also mean more diverse books for us to announce on this podcast coming soon too, which sometimes we have weeks where we have a ton of book deals, but in the larger scheme of things, it's still a drop in the bucket. So I'm always happy. Like if one of these days we have like a 2-hour book news episode, I'd be totally fine with that because that means progress.
You say you'll be totally fine with that, but I'll die because I would have to do all of the research. But I hope that this agreement, this contract, really raises the bar for the other publishing houses. I know Simon and Schuster, they have like the highest starting salary amongst the big five, I think. Don't quote me on it.
Yeah, Simon Schuster is, I think HarperCollins raised their starting salary to be the same as Simon Schuster, which is $50,000.
Okay, yeah.
According to this diagram on the HarperCollins Union Twitter page.
I just hope that, they increase competitive pay. People deserve raises for all of the work that they do.
Yeah, I mean, the other publishers, Penguin Random House, William Morrow, they are still below this parity. So now they have the right to negotiate when their union contract comes up too. So it's still baby steps, but it kind of shows you how one union strike can affect the whole entire industry. And it feels good to see them get the win, right? It makes me a little less cynical about our capitalistic world, although still plenty cynical.
Yeah, it does make me a little sad that we have to do so much work to just ask for the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And I really hope that the new contract covers the number of hours that editors are working, because I know that a lot of editors, they bring their work home and they're not getting paid for those hours that they're working from home because they have to read all of these manuscripts. So I hope that they're able to get a better work-life balance. But again, I haven't read the contract, so
yeah. I feel like that's still going to happen, just by the nature of the work,
just by the nature of the work. But at least they'll be better compensated. It's just really sad to see so many editors that I followed online leave the publishing industry because they were burnt out. So yeah. I'm hoping that the higher pay will definitely help get a better work-life balance, but we'll see.
Yeah. In any case, congratulations to the HarperCollins Union on the new contract. And looking forward to working with all the publicists from HarperCollins again soon. As we mentioned, we have been keeping a list of all the upcoming HarperCollins books on a separate list. And now that the strike is over, we'll probably do a all HarperCollins book news episode at some point in the future to catch up on those publishing announcements as well. So watch out for that. But moving on, we have some award news, right, Rira?
Yeah. So the American Library Association, or the ALA, announced the 2023 winners of the Youth Media Awards, which happened on January 30th during their LibLearnX conference in New Orleans. So obviously, we are an Asian and Asian American book club podcast, so we're only going to be giving shout outs to the Asian authors. Congratulations to all of the winners.
We have literary blindness, so we can only recognize Asian American authors on any of these lists.
I mean, we have to cheer for our own people. It's kind of like the Olympics. But yeah, so Sabaa Tahir's All My Rage won the Michael L. Prince Award for Excellence in Literature Written for Young Adults. The Last Mapmaker by Christina Soontornvat and Maisie Chen's Last Chance by Lisa Yee were named Newbery Honor Books. And the American Libraries Association also announced this year's Asian Pacific American Award winners. And the APA Award for Picture Book went to From the Tops of the Trees, written by Kalia Yang, and illustrated by Rachel Wada. And the honoree was Nana, Nanek, and Nina, written and illustrated by Liza Fernyhough. And the APA Award for Children's Literature went to Maisie Chen's Last Chance, written by Lisa Yi. And the committee named Troublemaker, written by John Cho, with Sarah Suk as the honoree. And for the last APA award that we have on this list, the youth literature winner went to Himawari House, written and illustrated by Harmony Becker. And the honoree was The Silence That Binds Us, written by Joanna Ho. And those are the Asian winners of the ALA awards.
So I didn't realize that the American Library Association had like a separate, like, not even category, like a separate section, award section just for Asian books.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've covered the APA awards in previous years.
Yeah, I just always thought that it was like its own separate thing. But that's cool to learn that it's part of like the official like American Library Association like umbrella, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, really cool to see all of the winners. A lot of books that we've covered on this podcast before.
I mean, a lot of awards were announced during this award ceremony. And I'm sorry if I missed any. But if I missed any Asian winners, please send them over to us by Twitter and we'll try to give a shout out. And, you know, it's really nice to see books that have been banned by certain school districts be winners in the Youth Media Awards, because as you guys may know, book bans have increased nationally, and it's become like a very serious problem as of late. So
as always, the Books and Boba official stance is no book bans. Book bans are bad. Don't do it.
Oh my God. So I don't know if you saw, but there was like a New York Times op-ed written by Margaret Atwood, the author of The Handmaid's Tale. And pretty much the gist of it was book bans just make people want to read banned books more. And it's like good for sales. And a lot of BIPOC authors were like, you missed the point. This is about kids. These are about kids who are unable to go to a library because there is a lack of funds. There is like no public transportation. And a lot of conservative parties have been going to libraries and kind of harassing librarians to take down those books. It's also about classroom libraries that have been taken away in states like Texas. It's about kids who don't have parents who have the time to take them to a bookstore if there's a bookstore locally. So there was a lot of disconnect from...
you'd think Margaret Atwood would be railing against, like, you are creating the dystopia that I wrote about. But yeah, that's kind of a bad take from her.
You know, I'm so glad that the American Library Association is really highlighting these books that have important issues that allow, like, BIPOC kids to be seen. And yeah, it's just really reassuring that the literary world is giving credit where it's due.
So again, congratulations to all of the award winners. And with that, that'll do it for our book news for February 2023. Before we go, though, remind us what we're reading for this month for book club.
We are reading The Charmed List by Julie Abe. And it's a best friends to enemies to lover story with witches and enchantment and
a road trip.
And a road trip. Yeah, gotta love road trip stories.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and we'll be discussing that book at the end of the month. What a nice refresher for the soul after reading Arquan's Babel last month.
Yeah, definitely a palate cleanse, because that book went into dark places. And the Charmed List, you know, has cupcakes and tea and magic.
And also we have a cameo in it, which is also nice.
Yeah. We've had Julie Abe on the show for her debut book, Eva Evergreen. And, you know, magical, feel-goodsy ambiance books are Julie's jam. So yeah. I'm really excited to talk to you about this, Marvin, on our show.
Yeah.
And for those of you who have already completed the book, please leave us comments on our Goodreads forums, or share your thoughts on Twitter and Instagram, and we will try to incorporate them in our discussion episode.
And with that, that'll do it for this episode of Books and Boba. We'll see you all next time. I think we have a couple more author interviews coming up, and then we have our discussion of the charm list. So lots of good content on the way. But until then, we'll see you next time on Books and Boba. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Books and Boba. This podcast was hosted by Marvin Yue and Rui Ryu and edited and produced by Marvin Yue. Follow the book club on Twitter and Instagram by going to @BooksandBoba and engage with us on Goodreads on our Goodreads group. You can also check out past episodes of the podcast by going to booksandboba.com and by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget, you can support Books and Boba and Asian American authors by purchasing books at our bookshop.org account. Check out the link in our show notes and also at booksandboba.com. Books and Boba is a proud member of the Potluck Podcast Collective, a collective of Asian American hosted podcasts featuring unique voices and stories from the Asian diaspora. Learn more about the collective and check out our fellow Potluck shows by visiting the website podcastpotluck.com. Thanks for listening.
Life gets a little crazy sometimes. Sometimes it's confusing, sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's beautiful, and sometimes it can just piss us off. Enter First of All Podcast. It's a safe space for real conversations about the things that we all struggle with, celebrate, contemplate, and work through in our daily lives. I'm your host, Mindy Chang. I'm an actor, filmmaker, and entrepreneur with a colorful background, a full life, and brilliant friends who I love to unpack life with to share with all of you. They are everyday people like you and me, ranging from award-winning artists, cultural icons, powerful CEOs, my hilarious childhood friends, and even my mom. Tune in for honest conversations on mental health, dating, sex, family, career, culture, and everything in between. Listen to First of All wherever you find podcasts, part of the Potluck Podcast Collective.